Hello, welcome back. In this task 1.3, another topic is multimodal data processing. We'll see what it is. Let's get started. So this topic is about how multimodal and unstructured data becomes usable by the foundation model. So it's not about, they may not be testing you about how to train speech or vision or video model. That might be out of scope for this exam. So what AWS is testing is whether you understand where multimodal data processing belongs in the generative AI architecture. So how do we make sure that FMs consume this multimodal data properly? Whether do you really do we need to convert audio into text, or video must be text, becomes a text, or extract signals from that? How do we parse the PDF documents? So how do we describe the images? So that is what the scope of this particular part of the exam is all about. So what they're testing is whether you can reduce the complexity when the question mentions large volumes of unstructured data, multiple data format, audio and video recording, least operational overhead. So AWS expect you to think about automation, not orchestration. So they want you to choose a managed service that handle multiple modalities in one flow instead of stitching together multiple pipelines with lambda, step function and everything. So that's where we are also going to explore about Bedrock data automation, how it helps in this data pre-processing. So so when you see some words like unstructured data, a multimodal content, least operational overhead, something should ring well in your mind is about Bedrock native multimodal processing, that is Bedrock data automation. We are going to discuss more about that in coming slides. So if you understand that this topic is about normalizing multimodal data before the consumption by the foundation model, you will consistently land on the correct answer. So there are some architectural principles. That's what separates a correct design from a wrong one. So first principle is that normalize every modality early. So foundation models do not work with raw media. They might work, but they may not work efficiently if you give them a raw media, right? So something like audio, video, images, and document must be converted into text, metadata, or embeddings before consumption by the foundation models. If the architecture sends a raw multimodal data directly to the foundation model, the option might be wrong. Second principle is prefer a unified multimodal pipeline. So you do not want to build a separate pipeline for text, for audio, video, images. A multiple pipeline increases the failure points, obviously, right? And then it also increases operational overhead, also increase operational cost. So the exam consistently rewards architecture that process all modalities through a single managed workflow. And third principle is that minimize orchestration. If solution requires step functions to coordinate multiple lambda functions for parsing, transformation, routing, it is usually over engineered for the exam unless the use case specifically calls for it. So the preference here is that to be use managed services that handle orchestration internally. And next, fourth principle is use Bedrock native capabilities when multimodal processing is required. When the problem statement mentions unstructured document, audio recording, or video content at scale, AWS is signaling that Bedrock native automation should be considered first. This is where automated multimodal parsing becomes the expected design choice. Next, another important principle, multimodal processing always happens before RAG or inference. Extraction and normalization must be completed before data is indexed or knowledge bases are built, summaries are generated, or foundation models are invoked. So if processing happens after any of these steps, the design might be incorrect. So if you apply these principles consistently, multimodal questions becomes predictable instead of confusing you. So this is exam style question as usual. please pause the video, read the question for a few minutes, guess the correct answer. We'll discuss about how to arrive at the correct answer in the coming slides. As usual, like we did in all other lessons, before looking at answer, the first thing we do is look at the constraint. What is the first constraint? The data is unstructured and exists in multiple formats. Documents or scanned files and audio recordings. This immediately rules out solution that assumes clean pre-parsed text. Second constraint, the data must be prepared for a RAG. That means the output of the pipeline must be structured, consistent, and indexable. Third constraint, the solution must support multiple modalities in the same system, not separate pipelines, not one-off processing jobs. And another constraint, the solution must have least operational overhead. This is one of the important constraints. So any design that requires orchestration, a code, a custom code, a script might not be the right answer. So these constraints define the shape of the correct answer before you even read the choices. Next, see some of the important signals in the question. Once the constraints are clear, we need to identify what signals are there. The phrase large volumes of unstructured data is a strong signal. It tells you AWS expects automation, not manual parsing. When you see audio recording, that signals that the raw media must be transformed before the foundation model use. This rules out foundation model only, prompt only type of solutions. The phrase prepared data for RAG is critical. It means output must be integrated cleanly with a vector store or knowledge base. Finally, the important phrase least operational overhead is decisive. It pushes you away from step functions or lambda heavy pipelines and custom SageMaker jobs. With all the signals appears together, it is clearly pointing towards managed bedrock native multimodal processing solution. That's the key to the success in the exam. You need to recognize these constraint signals even before you actually start looking at the answers. That way you spend less time in actually eliminating the wrong answers and arrive at the right answer. Now we eliminate the answer options one by one using the constraints and signals we already identified. Starting with option A, this option uses AWS step functions to orchestrate, extract, and transcribe. While technically it works, it introduces orchestration logic, state management, and a glue code for that. The question explicitly requires that least operational overhead. So this option might not work. Now look at the option C. This option uses foundation model with prompt template to transcribe audio and summarize document. This is kind of a common trap, right? Foundation models are not designed to replace a media extraction service at scale. So this approach requires heavy prompt engineering and produce inconsistent output. So we can easily eliminate option C, no brainer. Okay. Now evaluate option D. So SageMaker processing with custom script can process documents and audio. This is doable, but it requires managing infrastructure, code, dependencies, deployment, and everything, right? Again, this violates the constraint what we discussed previously, which is operational overhead. Now come to the option B, which uses Amazon Bedrock data automation to extract structured insight from document and audio recordings. It integrates directly with Amazon Bedrock knowledge base for RAG workflow. So this option handles multimodal unstructured data, produces FM ready structured output, eliminate custom orchestration, minimizes operational overhead. That is what exactly this question is asking. So the correct option is option B. So this is the elimination process, is how you have to reason through multimodal pipeline questions in the actual exam. Now let's look at the Bedrock data automation. Okay, I'll quickly walk you through Bedrock data automation through the console. One of the important concepts for the exam. You can go to Amazon Bedrock. On the left hand side, you will find this data automation. That is what takes you Bedrock data automation. So what is Bedrock data automation is that it is a managed service which can be used to process either documents or images or videos and audios, so that you can, but again, this is not this is an offline process. So you can take these documents, process them, store them in S3 bucket, which can be consumed by your RAG or your agents or any other your generative applications. So there are different use cases are there, whether for RAG indexing or IDP, which is intelligent document processing, or media analysis or audio analysis. We'll first show you, try with a simple demo project which they have already given. We can pick up some documents and see how Bedrock data automation actually helps in pre-processing. Then I'll also show you some of the key things you have to remember for the exam. First, try a simple demo. We'll click on try demo here. For example, let's take up this one. We'll try driver license, where we have to read this driver license. So what it does is, you can select upload a file, you can review the results, and you can create a project or a blueprint out of it. We'll discuss about the project blueprint later. First, see this how. For example, here I'm using the existing driver license they are given, or I can upload from S3 or from my computer, and I could have all the security, the KMS, tagging, everything. So we'll leave all the options default, and then click on generate results. Now let's see what happens. This is Bedrock data automation is analyzing this picture. It gives you some options for you. You can see that it has converted, it has read everything, the text from the driver license. You can see that at the element level also, it reads you the data at page element level. You got a lot of options, whether you want to have a plain text, or you want to have text with HTML, you want to have a CSV table, or you can also define your custom output. Like if you want to have, map this to a specific output you want. So this is very simple demo, right? You just select the document. Maybe you can try different options here. For example, I can take a bank statement here. Now this will process, it will read this document, and then it is going to display all the different fields in this particular document. Now there are few concepts we need to understand in the Bedrock data automation. The first one is the projects. Before you do anything, you create a Bedrock data project. So you can create a project like this. For example, we can say test or certification. So test cert. So I create this project. So once I create this project, I can do two things. I could attach multiple blueprints for this project. So for example, I might have a different PDF files, or I might have a PDF file, I might have an audio file, I might have a video file. So I create a different blueprint for different types of documents I want to process. So this kind of, you need to remember this clearly, that if you're having multiple document types, you need to create one blueprint for each type of the document. For example, if I'm having 5 different PDF files, all of them having different structure, then I end up creating multiple blueprints for that. Now you can see that here, right? Once this is a project, now I need to also create a blueprint. So you can create a custom, these are all standard blueprints, but you can also create your own blueprint. So you can either select upload the file, you can have the prompt here, you could have the modality like what you want to have, and then you can create this blueprint. So then you attach this blueprint, okay, with the project. For example, let's take this one. This is one of the blueprint they're having, which is analyzing this particular PDF file. It is extracting the data from this PDF file and then into these fields, right? This is a custom blueprint I have created. Now I can add this blueprint to an existing project. Now let us add this to our existing project. Now I can go to my projects. Okay, so now this project is having this particular blueprint. Now you can see that this project is having this blueprint. Now how does it helps is that when you invoke this the batch job, bedrock data automation job, and pass a document, and you need to just provide a project name. Now the bedrock is able to identify this particular document belongs to which particular blueprint, and then it will apply that blueprint to this particular um, um, document you are giving input. So that's what the importance of the blueprint. So now within the blueprint you could have a lot of other configurations. You can extract something, you can do the transformation, you could have validations. So all the stuff you can do in the blueprint. So to summarize, the process is like that. You create a project. Within the project you create multiple blueprints. The thumb rule is that one blueprint for one type of a document. If you're having 5 different PDF files, they're having different tables, different structure, you create 5 different blueprints for each of the document. If you're having a PDF file, audio files, video files, you create different blueprints for different modalities. Now you need to first upload your raw data, either your audio files or PDF files or video files, into an S3 bucket, and you have to invoke the bedrock data automation job by passing the location of S3 bucket and the project name. When you pass the project name and the file name, the bedrock data automation is automatically able to figure out which blueprint to apply to this data by looking at the data. It knows that, okay, I'm publishing a bank statement. Yeah, I should use a bank statement blueprint. If there is an audio file, I should use audio file blueprint. So it is able to apply that blueprint for the data. Now within the blueprint, you need to remember 3 things. Like, when you see the data, you can do 3 things. You can extract the data, you can do the transformation of the data, you can have the validation of the data. So I would encourage you to go through at high level the bedrock data automation documentation. There might be some questions on whether you have to use transformation here, or validation here, or extraction here. So you need to understand when to use which type of transformation. So apart from all these things, I want you to go through the bedrock data automation documentation and also write a simple lambda function to invoke the bedrock data automation from the in lambda function, this job. Okay, so this is about bedrock data automation. This is one of the very, very important concept for the exam. Wherever you see that you need to handle multi-modal data like PDFs, audio, video, and everything. Instead of building multiple custom tools, this is a one single unified pipeline you can build to process different types of data. So most of us get one doubt, like, when I already have a text extract or transcribe or recognition, why should I again use bedrock data automation? In fact, I had the same question when I started looking at bedrock automation, but look into some details. It's all about the right level of abstraction. That is what exactly the AWS is testing. Start with the goal. If the goal is preparing data for foundation model or RAG, we expect a generative AI centric ingestion service. This is where Amazon Bedrock Data Automation fits in. So Bedrock Data Automation, or BDA, is designed to handle unstructured and multi-model inputs together. Documents, audio, and video are processed in a single managed flow, right? That's what I mean to say. Like, you can create a one project, you could have multiple blueprints as part of the one project. You can just give the input. It is able to figure out which blueprint to apply depending upon the data it is looking into. So The output is structured and ready for knowledge base and for foundation model consumption with minimal operational effort. Now there is also textract or transcribe. So text these two services, textract and transcribe, are very, I would say, deterministic extraction services. They do one job each and they do it well. So it's all about how much control you want to have. So extract the text and structure from document. Transcribe converts audio to text. When the question focus on extraction only or requires very fine-grained control over how you are extracting, then obviously textract or transcribe might make sense there, right? Basically, you have some complex data extraction, from the PDF files. Then I would recommend look into the question and say that textract might be the right solution there instead of BDA, because the document extraction is very complex and you need a lot of control over how you want to extract. You might have some tables, the edges, the images, a lot of different complexities involved in the document. Textract is going to make sense at that time. That's what I mean to say. The level of abstraction required, the level of control you require determines which tool to use. But using them directly means you must handle everything, right? You need to handle orchestration, the downstream integration yourself. So the deciding factor is usually the operational overhead and the end goal. If you see multimodal, RAG preparation and least operational overhead together, there is very good chances that that is what Bedrock data automation is might be doing. If you see a single modality extraction and custom processing requirement, very fine grained control over how you extract the data, textract or transcribe is the correct choice. So the distinction here is, again, it goes by cases. Textract and transcribe extract content. BDA prepares content for GenAI pipeline. So that's the difference you need to remember when you're looking at the questions. So basically the multimodal questions are easier than they look if you watch for some of the traps. So anytime you see audio, video or scanned documents, the pre-processing becomes mandatory. Raw media never directly goes into a foundation model. If a solution relies on step functions or multiple lambda functions just to parse the data, it is already too complex for what AWS wants. So be especially careful with prompt only solutions. Using a foundation model to parse or transcribe a multimodal data looks clever but is not the correct approach. So another common mistake is building separate pipeline for each data type. So basically AWS constantly prefers a single managed flow. And finally, SageMaker pre-processing jobs are often overused. They work, but they add operational burden when managed multi-model service already exist. So if you avoid these type of traps, the multi-model data pre-processing becomes really easy. So that's all about this particular topic, and I will see you in the next lesson.